You are listening to The Big Scuba. This is an audio-only episode.
Hello, welcome to The Big Scuba Show.
So here we are, once again.
We're Dylan and Mike, a Mank and a Yank from Cape RADD, and we're here with Gemma and Ian on the Big Scuba Podcast.
I'm Mike, he's Dylan. We're Mike and Dylan, and this is our Big Scuba Podcast about Cape RADD. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, welcome back. This is the Big Scuba Podcast coming at you. This is episode number 41, Gemma.
Yeah.
My name's Ian, and
My name's Gemma.
on this episode we have all the way from South Africa, haven't we? In their words, a Mank and a Yank.
Yep, so they're based in Cape Town in False Bay.
Yeah, we're not being politically incorrect there, are we? That's what they refer to themselves. So they warmly call themselves, which is always good.
Yeah.
What is Cape RADD? Cape RADD, kind of sort of a dive centre.
Research centre, kind of a platform for field research in that marine area.
If you're in the neck of the woods in South Africa and you haven't been there, go give them a look and see what they're up to. They've got a website, and we'll get to all that in due course. So, coming up, Mike and Dylan from Cape RADD. Sit back and enjoy and listen up.
Here we go.
Sure. I'm Mike Barron. I'm co-founder of Cape RADD, Cape Research and Dive Development, and I've been scuba diving for best part of 15 years. And I'm a master scuba diving instructor, and I facilitate a lot of the logistical diving side and the scientific diving and field work for Cape RADD. And my background is white shark behaviour. Previously, that's what I did my postgraduate in, and then we've kind of moved into a more ecological, sort of holistic domain where we're focusing on the kelp forests of the Cape Peninsula here in South Africa.
Wow, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
So you had a quite good experience there then, from instructing and getting involved in the white sharks.
Yeah, so I did my instructors in Mozambique while I was working out in Mossel Bay doing some field work over there. And I never really kind of combined the two skills, really, marine biology and scuba diving, until recently, when we've started to really focus in on scientific diving and sort of fieldwork focused skills.
Yeah. And where do you originate from?
I'm originally from UK, Manchester, as you can hear my accent. Can't hide that.
Yeah. So how long have you been in South Africa for, or out of the UK?
I've been in South Africa for about 10 years, just about. Yeah, and I was in Australia for a couple of years before that, or in between that. Yeah. So I've not been actually in the UK full time really for a long time, since I was about 20.
Yeah. You still go back? Still come back?
Yeah, I try to. Obviously at the minute not so much, but we try and get back at least once or twice a year. I actually went back last year in November, got married.
Oh, right,
so,
nice.
We got married back in the UK. But I've never actually dived in the UK. How bad's that?
You're not alone.
We've got no choice now.
No. I believe it's very good though in certain areas.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's an awful lot of advocates for UK diving, and it's obviously going to do it a lot of favours, I think, because we are not able to escape the UK at the moment. So
You're being forced into it.
Yeah, dry suit. That's it. Yeah. So how about you, Dylan? What part do you play?
Yeah, so I'm the other co-founder of Cape RADD, and Mike and I met in Mossel Bay about 10 years ago, which is another town here in South Africa. I'm from the States, so we always like to describe ourselves as a Mank and a Yank. And that's about where my diving career started, in Mossel Bay. So I did the open water, but I've got to confess, I'm a bit more of a free diver. I don't know if that's a taboo word around here.
No, not at all.
Ooh.
Is it?
But yeah, I don't think so. I think they're both from a mutual love of the oceans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, our last episode we released at the weekend was about a free diver.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You're getting some recognition. But yeah, I'm doing a PhD here in Southern Africa, trying to improve our ability to estimate populations specifically for the white shark. And so the element that I bring to Cape RADD as a field course is some of the academic instruction and taking the data that we collect and teaching students how to analyze what we've got, and also analyzing it ourselves and trying to come up with interesting projects that we can do here on our doorstep. And then, yeah, I do a little bit of volunteering at Sea Rescue, which is an organization kind of like your RNLI. And so we've got a lot of stuff, a lot of things to do with the ocean in Cape RADD.
Yeah. So is it like a membership of the Cape RADD? Have you got kind of a group of followers? Do you have subscriptions?
No, it's several things. So primarily we are a research station and we do research. And then we also use that as an opportunity to teach. And so students will join a course for a month, and it's kind of like a tuition. And so they'll spend 2 weeks, 4 weeks with us, and it's a very intensive hands-on in the water, in the classroom. They are learning how science happens in the water.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the main focus.
Give us an example. How do you mean when you say you teach them how science happens? What do you actually mean? What would be an example?
Well, it's the techniques that we use to collect data. So they're often very standardized procedures that we have to use so that when we are trying to make comparisons, we've got kind of the same types of information. So we would lay out a transect line underwater, which it's basically just a measuring tape, and it gives us a guide to kind of follow in a straight line. And then along that line, we would maybe count only within a certain width of the line or something, and count all of the types of starfish that we see or the types of fish that we see. And doing those types of things, that they don't come naturally, and so they need a bit of practice and instruction and buoyancy.
Yeah. So are all the students, are they already qualified marine biologists?
A lot of them are they're usually on their way studying to be. But another component of what we do with Cape RADD is trying to open that up to everybody. And so we like to run kind of just single day diving events where we take on regular people as citizen scientists. And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, get them engaged with the ocean and in a way where they are.
Do you take kids as well for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It tends to be something that is very popular amongst kids because it's new to them and it kind of ties in with what they're learning in school.
Yeah.
Some of their biology subjects, and it's fun. It's almost like a treasure hunt. We go out and we try to take as many pictures of as many different sharks as we can and try to identify the individuals and see if we recognize them from previous dives.
Yeah.
And also count what we're seeing.
And are you seeing that? So you'll see a certain individual shark populating a certain area around a rock or something like that. So
it's a good question, because this is exactly what my PhD is based on, coming up with ways or using ways of kind of estimating how many there are based on identifying individuals and then maybe how often you recite them. And we recently launched a very similar project on some of the smaller sharks that we get here, and they're only found in Southern Africa. We call them cat sharks, benthic sharks. There's other species around the world, but there's 4 that only exist in Southern Africa. And we've started this project to take pictures of them and get kind of shots of their patterns that we can use as fingerprints to ID them. And we've been doing it now for, I would say, a couple months maybe. And pictures are people's older pictures that they've collected and contributed, but we just had our first re-sighting earlier this week of a shark that we saw.
Which we're very excited about.
Yeah. We basically went and looked for it every day, 3 days in a row, and we found it, but it was the first one of like 100 that we had identified and recognized.
Would there be any way you could put some kind of tracker, you know, like the Galapagos guys, what they put, you know, they'll swim up and put a tracking system beacon on the back. I know you're talking a huge shark, aren't you? But is there anything you could do like that, and you could see where it goes and its behaviours?
There are some tags out there. There's a few other researchers that are doing that. They'll use acoustic tags. So they make an ultrasonic pulse, and they can be detected by receivers. So you need special equipment to be able to follow them or listen for them. But they do exist. And then there's also kind of more basic tags that are just, you know, have a coded number on them. So when fishermen catch them, or if divers see it and get close enough for a photo, you can just read the number, and that will identify it and reflect.
Are these protected? Are they all protected?
Not officially. You can catch them. There are areas that are protected where fishing might be restricted, and they're found in some.
So if a fisherman caught one and that's been tagged, is he, you know, is he meant to be putting that back in because it's got a tag?
Yeah.
They are.
Generally, it's kind of a catch and release type thing.
So, Cape RADD, what sort of area do you cover? Is it very specific, like a few kilometres, or do you go quite a way out into the ocean?
So we're focused. We're headquarters in Simonstown. So most of our focus is on the False Bay area. So I don't know if you're familiar with the geography of Cape Town, but if you look at it on the map, you'll see like the peninsula, and on the right-hand side there's a nice big sort of semicircular bay, and that's False Bay. That's the bay which has the Seal Island in it, and it's famous for its white shark population, or at least it was. And so what we're looking at is around that peninsula specifically, there are marine protected areas and marine MPAs, and there's heavily fished zones. And a lot of our work looking at the biodiversity and the ecology is looking at the comparisons inside and outside of those marine protected areas, seeing how effective they are being in terms of replenishing the surrounding regions. And so most of our work is based around the False Bay side, and we do a bit on the Atlantic side as well, the other side of the peninsula. So it's quite localized. In end of last year, actually, I don't know if you've heard of Mission Blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sylvia Hill. Well, Cape RADD became the Mission Blue Hope Spot champions for False Bay region.
All right, nice.
And so a lot of our work with our research and our awareness, we're trying to pump out there and sort of create a bit more awareness, not only for ecotourism and tourists and divers, but for the local community around the whole of the bay as well, to empower sort of the communities as well. That's the kind of idea of it. So in terms, it's quite localized, but it's a reasonably large area.
Yeah, and how long have you been operating for? Is it...
We actually had our 3rd birthday this week, or at the weekend. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So,
Yeah.
we haven't had a cake though yet. Still
No,
waiting
you
for a
don't
cake.
have a cake.
I know. Birthday cake, any excuse.
Responsibility is cake.
Dylan, you're cake man. Come on, get on it.
When did I become in charge of the cake?
That's most important.
Exactly.
Where do your people doing the courses come from? Are they pretty sort of local to Cape Town, or do you get people from further afield?
Well, now at the minute, obviously, we are really sort of open. Well, we've always been open to everyone and anyone who wants to join us. We're running a course currently with South African local, and we've had quite a bit of local interest. But the majority of our students are from the USA, Europe, UK mostly, and we've had a few Australians. That's our sort of bulk of our students, and they kind of come over here for that set period of time, usually 4 weeks, and they get that nice tuition, marine science tuition, and then they go back to their universities or wherever they come from and go into further study or apply for relevant jobs using this training on their CV.
So we haven't got to the end of our chat with Mike and Dylan at Cape RADD, but we just wanted to mention about another way you can support the Big Scuba podcast. Ian and I both enjoy adventures under and on the water, and some of which you can view on our YouTube channel called TheBiGScuba. The links are in the podcast show notes. Have a look and a view of the videos. You will start to see highlights of our podcast interviews with our guests too. Please do click on the subscribe button and the bell button, and you'll then get notifications when our new videos are out. Ian and I both really appreciate your support and welcome new subscribers. Right, back to the boys at Cape RADD.
So obviously COVID has affected you quite badly then if people can't travel from US and UK. Are you trying to widen your reach where people can actively travel easily to you?
We not so much in kind of expanding and becoming more accessible, but we have tried to become a little more creative with how we spread our message and how we share our ocean with people. We did a lot of kind of transferring our course material onto video and making those available for people and giving them an opportunity to see exactly what it is that we're teaching and what we're offering. And more recently, we've been tinkering around with maybe doing some of the citizen science type stuff that we do, but virtually or with videos and maybe opening that up to people to participate online and have some immersive video or some 360 video and have people watch that and help us count the fish that they see and then teach them a little bit about the biology and the ecology that makes this area so unique along the way. We haven't finished rolling that out yet, but it is something we're working on.
So in the 3 years you've been operating, have you noticed a big difference in the marine life that you've got on your doorstep?
I don't know if it's just because we've been sort of out of the water for a little bit of time with COVID, but at least in the last couple of dives that we've done, I certainly think some of the kelp looks a lot more lush than I remember. It's thicker and fuller, and I don't know if that's a consequence of any of this or if it's a natural thing.
Why do you think that'd be a consequence?
As well. I was struggling to think on this afternoon when we got out of the water if it's because there's less boat traffic or less people in the water, or if it's something to do with that. There are some areas where the local community have complained that people are cutting away kelp so that they have easier access for their boats. But I don't think that has a huge impact. But maybe it could be the reduction in people in the water and I don't really know.
I suppose if people are not using the water so much, chances are there is going to be less pollution, which is going to affect the kelp, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the same issue like with the coral reef where the sun creams and those kinds of things are damaging the life there, but there's got to be some kind of a reason for it that's to do with people being in the water.
Because I was looking at that about some of these sun creams that are used, and you only need a tiny little amount to get into the water for that to affect coral. It's unbelievable. You're tiny, considering how big the sea is, you don't need much for it to start affecting the coral.
And you think about all the hundreds of thousands of people who are jumping in every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're doing another study here. Cape Town is a coastal community, and there's not a lot of spare room within the city, and so the wastewater, the sewage water, in several places is just pumped offshore. I mean, it's treated and macerated and broken down, but it's just pumped into the ocean. And there have been a lot of recent studies from a chemical perspective, looking at what impact that has on whether there's E. coli washing ashore and endangering beachgoers and that kind of thing. But there hasn't really been an impact on what that does to the fish life and some of the biodiversity in the region. So we're doing some studies, or helping with a study, where trying to get an idea of whether maybe that's drawing in fish from further afield or whether it's changing the composition of fish that we would naturally see. But that also has pharmaceutical implications for all the stuff that we flush into the ocean, and whether that's impacting, maybe there are more female fish now, or maybe the fish that would normally change from male to female, they go through the natural process, and pH and all those different water chemistries. You're right.
Yeah, there's such a lot to do.
So how do you get your
There's
funding?
always, so most of the field course is kind of designed to fund the research and kind of create that self-sufficient strategy where we don't need to rely on grant money and research funding. But for projects like this one with the wastewater treatment, that's coming in from a little budget the city of Cape Town has allocated to doing a pilot study here.
Right, because it must be good for in normal times, tourism. You obviously want the wildlife, which clean beaches. So it's in your nation's interest to keep those areas clean and keep the tourists coming back to look, enjoy the wildlife and everything else. So it's in the government's interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that it's set up is that the city applies for a permit to be able to do this. And so if they can't show that they are efficiently treating the water and taking care of what they're doing, they're not going to have the permit to be able to do it anymore.
Yeah, well, it's good there's, there are these grants available. And there's a lot of people now, so much more interested in the conservation of the ocean as well.
So and that's a big part of what our citizen science thing is as well. So obviously we're marine scientists, and we do research projects, which are like proper research projects. And then we do the training side, but also the citizen science side is to open that up, like Dylan said, to the public and get them engaged and get them involved and get them being able to contribute back and give back to something which sometimes people can feel a little bit excluded from because of these, sciences and everything. People can be quite intimidated by it. So the idea is to blur the edges between recreational snorkeling and diving and real citizen science projects, which collect lots of data, and they run sort of long-term monitoring programs, like looking at fish distributions and densities over a long period of time. And all these observations that our snorkelers and our divers are contributing to the database is helping build up a nice big baseline for that kind of data as well.
That's quite good, because this is not the first time today we've heard the phrase citizen science, have we, Gemma?
No.
Talking to Project Aware earlier today, and that's really interesting. And the conversation that we had with them is very similar to what we're having with you, and it's all about the citizen science, how the average diver can now take part in research and play their part, in helping you guys find when you see a certain ray, you can identify it, and there's systems out there that you can log it. So are you using it? So when you say there's a database, where do people go to find this database? And are you using an app or anything like that? Because some of these organizations have now got their own apps, haven't they?
Yeah, we've been collecting citizen science data for pretty much as long as we've been around now, and we also use some of the apps that already exist, but we also maintain our own database, which it's not kind of forward-facing, freely available, but it does exist, and it is something that if like a university wanted to have access to, they send us an email and we send it off to them. But we use the apps like iNaturalist and those for recording observations, and then this new fin spotter program that I mentioned earlier, that we have a website that has all of the individuals that have been photographed and tells you where they were seen and when they were seen, and that's all freely available online. That one's at fin.caperadd.com. I'm calling it Fin Spotter, and that works with a software called Wildbook, which is something that's used for a lot of different species for identifying individuals. They use it for whale sharks and manta rays and giraffe, zebra, and all kinds of animals.
So there's quite a bit of, really, when you look around and you think about what you and the other organisations are all doing, you're all holding quite a bit of data on these different animals. So do you ever network and compare stats and help each other? How does that work?
Not so much, but there is a global biodiversity information foundation. I can't remember what the F stands for now, but GBIF, GBIF, and they are an organization
Fish. Maybe it's fish.
It could be. It's biodiversity though. It's any kind of life, so not necessarily just fish.
Okay.
But we could say fish for the conversation. And they collate all of these different databases, all of the citizen science ones like iNaturalist. They also are involved with a lot of institutions and universities, and they will collect their data that is of a specific kind of biodiversity type data and keep it in this central repository. And anybody can access it. And it gets used in hundreds of papers and reports every year. So that we are contributing to. But yeah, we've tried to reach out to some of the organizations like Reef, who also do a similar fish monitoring program. They are more of a tropical focus though. So they weren't, I mean, we had talked to them for a little bit and then that kind of fizzled out. But for the most part, yeah, we're kind of on our own lonesome selves down in the southern tip of the continent.
So I'm trying to think, because I thought this conversation was going to be more about the teaching side of things, but actually more about conservation and that's great. So are you looking for, I suppose, more publicity, because like we hadn't heard of you. So, is it you want us to try and help spread the word? What are you looking for? What's going to be good?
Well, I mean, yeah, we're quite new. So we only came around end of 2017 and we're sort of building up, and we pretty much do it with the two of us, small team. And yeah, I think what we're looking for is just to let people know like the exciting work that we're doing and lots of other people are doing as well. There's a lot of good organizations out there doing great work, and I think now more than ever we have to spread that positivity that there is good things going on, there is research happening and conservation management in place for a lot of great species and a lot of great ecosystems, but there's always more we can do, and there's always more that everyone can do, whether you're training to be a marine scientist and a scuba diver or professional diver and you want to take that a little bit further and have specific module-based training course where you go through from the basics of citizen science through the sort of development of more scientific sampling techniques. Or if you're just a snorkeler or a scuba diver, you're not sort of a scientist or going into that area, but you're interested in conservation, marine conservation, you want to give back, you want to contribute, come and join us. We want to get people to sort of excited again about the diving and the snorkeling, and give them new objectives in the water, give them a new focus and teach them something about the ocean instead of just giving them a snorkel and a tank and throwing them in. We want to take them with us and teach them about the relationships going on in the kelp forest between these two species of kelp, or between the urchins and the rock lobsters, and explain the relationships and give people that interest and passion, and hopefully give them a bit more reason to want to conserve these things.
Yeah.
And a great way. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people get in the water and we take them out, and it's maybe 20, 50 meters off the beach, and it's just incredible biodiversity, and people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was there. And it's taken a mank and a yank to get them out there in the water in South Africa. And one of the biggest things you can do is by joining people like Cape RADD for snorkels and dives, that sort of ecotourism side of our business funds other elements of our research as well.
Yeah, so it has a benefit, isn't it? All hand in hand. So what does your typical day sort of look like? You said you've been diving today. So do you get in the water every day?
When we're running a field course, it's quite full on. So like I get asked that question. It's always like, oh, well, there's no typical day for us because, it's all over the place. But for example, so yeah, today we're on our day 6 of our field course. So it's just starting our 2nd week. So we had a measuring biodiversity workshop this morning. So that was teaching students methods and sort of the theories and hypothesis behind measuring biodiversity. and the different ways and techniques of doing that. And then this afternoon we jumped in for a belt transect, and we ran through the kelp forest and did a macroinvertebrate transect. So we were looking for different starfish species, urchins, sea cucumbers, data collection on that.
Hey, sea cucumbers, we talked about them today. They're really important, aren't they?
They poo sand, apparently.
Yeah, they're fantastic things. Bit weird looking.
And they fight climate change as well, apparently.
Not the most charismatic of species, I must say.
No, I bet. No.
What sort of conditions are you diving in at the moment? What's the temperature? And
so this is a really interesting thing about this area, Cape Town. It's one of the very few cities in the world which is sort of built in the sort of what we call eco-region of a warmer temperate water compared to the Atlantic water. So False Bay essentially acts almost as environmentally as the Indian Ocean. Whereas the other side, we've got the Atlantic, it's still classed as the Atlantic Ocean, but it gets the environmental elements of the Indian Ocean compared to the other side of the peninsula, which is the Western Cape and the Atlantic. So on our side today, we had 15 degrees Celsius temperature, and it was very nice and calm today. We had about 6 or 7 meters viz, which is pretty much low average in Cape Town for this side and this time of year. And then on the other side, by contrast, if you look at what the guys in Cape Town was doing today, they were diving in 7, 8 degrees water Celsius, with 15, 20 meters visibility.
And what's the kind of difference in distance between those 2 points?
As the crow flies across from one side to the other, it can't be more than 7 or 8 kilometers.
Really?
Big difference.
Yeah. So it's all due to do with the currents and the climate here on the point. So we've got the warm current, Mozambique current, pushing down the east coast, and that's bringing in that milder, water warmer, which pushes into the bay here at this time of year with those southeast winds, or trade winds are those southeasters, and this time of year they start pumping. We get 20 to 30 knots on a regular occasion, 2 or 3 days of the week or more. And we had a big pump on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And basically what that does is it pushes a lot of dirty water often into the False Bay area for this short periods. And then on the other side, it pushes a lot of the surface water up the coastline. And that then can't be replenished from the east because there's land mass in the way. So what we find is these upwellings. I'm sure everyone knows what an upwelling is. Basically this very rich nutrient, but microscopic nutrients in the water rises to the surface, freezing cold, like we say 7, 8 degrees, because it's been sat so deep in the Atlantic for so long. And in a lot of places, California, Australia, Japan, these places, they all get these similar oceanic events, but they're kind of talking in the sort of 5, 10, 15 meters in a 24-hour period of uplift. Whereas here, with the wind, which is so strong, we can have over 30 meters of upwelling in a 24-hour period. So it creates these incredible conditions where you can have, like they were saying, 25 meters today. I don't believe anyone who says 25 meters. I don't know.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds a bit
You must have all whales and the other animals all come up from the depths as well to follow them, do they?
Exactly. So that creates this biodiversity hotspot which we're in. So the microscopic algae come up and the zooplankton, and then the predatory zooplankton follows those guys up the water column to feed on them. And then the fish cruise up, and the smaller fish, and then the larger fish eat the small fish, and then your predatory fish. And then that creates our marine megafauna, or marine big five, what we talk about, our whales, dolphins, seals, penguins, sharks.
That's really
and
awesome
that creates
to
this
see.
huge amount of nutrient cycle with these amazing animals coming in to cruise on them.
Yeah, God, it must be amazing.
You asked earlier what can you guys do to help, and I think one thing is definitely help kind of publicize the brand of the great African sea forest, and that's really what we've got here. Southern Africa is a destination for safari and lots of terrestrial animals and elephants and lions and that kind of thing. But in the ocean too, we've got these incredible ecosystems, and there's been a lot of work to kind of create a brand around that and to make Cape Town, make False Bay a diving destination. I'm sure you guys have seen the Netflix My Octopus Teacher and all of it, kind of to share and spread the beauty on the coastline here and bring people to come and appreciate it and learn.
Yeah, and again, it will then make more people interested in the conservation side of things.
Yeah, I was really lucky. When I lived in Australia, I worked on the Great Barrier Reef for a year, and I also worked on the Ningaloo Reef for a year. And both those barrier reefs are incredible. But I think I prefer diving in the kelp forests because it's a three-dimensional ecosystem. It's just so unique. It's so different to anything else that you would usually dive in. Yeah. So I think if you've not dived in kelp forest before, you can do it in the UK. There's some beautiful kelp forests in the UK, but South Africa also has this incredible ecosystem and marine megafauna as well.
Yeah.
What sort of depths do you do your research at?
Most of our diving, because we're working in fringe kelp, most of our diving is shallower than 10-15 meters. Okay. So it's pretty shallow dives. We do have some deeper dives where we might go to maybe 20-25 meters, for example, when we're running these samples for the outfalls in Cape Town and things like that. But a lot of shallow work, which is quite challenging here because we aren't barrier reef, we aren't crystal clear waters, calm, cruisy days. We like to put our students and our divers in a bit of a challenge, and we do get surge, we get swell, we get low visibility, and it's all part of the excitement and the challenge of diving in. Everyone always says, if you can dive in Cape Town, you can dive anywhere. Yeah.
That's what they say about the UK.
Oh, it's very similar conditions.
It is, yeah. We had some friends go out there a couple of years ago, and they went out there expecting it to be really warm, and and they had a bit of a shock. They didn't realise that the climate was so like ours. And
in Cape Town. But if you travel, 15 hours, drive 15 hours. If you flew a couple of hours up to Durban or Sodwana area, then the water is like subtropical temperatures. You're in your 20 plus degrees, and it's subtropical coral reefs, and it's a completely different environment again. So, South Africa is one of these unique places where you can dive in kelp forests one day, and then you can go and dive in tropical reefs another day.
We had a listener actually contact us. Name's Hannah. Hannah Thamey, I hope I got that pronunciation right. Lives in Maseru in Lesotho. Yeah, I'm sure I probably got all that pronunciation totally wrong. Near Harrismith.
Don't know Lesotho. It's miles away from us, mate.
Yeah,
it's literally in the middle of South Africa and Lesotho is its own little.
I know. You look on the map and you think, well, it don't look too far, but you imagine it's probably absolutely miles away. And she just contacted us, one about the podcast, but also saying about diving. She'd tried diving in Durban, but because of where she lived, she's actually miles from the sea, and she was hoping to go to South Africa to pick up some learn diving, which would be really good. So be nice. We'll give her your details on that.
Yeah, if she wants to do some kelp forest stuff, absolutely. Yeah. So Lesotho is literally like a landlocked little thing in the middle of South Africa.
Yeah.
So
no
sea there.
No. Have you got travel restrictions for you in South Africa at the moment? Is that?
They've just opened up travel internationally the beginning of October, but there are restrictions on what countries people can travel from. Mm-hmm. I think at the moment the US and the UK are not on the allowed list, and the rest of Africa is, though, so you can travel in Lesotho to South Africa. But hopefully that's going to change soon. I don't know how often they plan to update that list, but at least, I mean, it's progress. We probably had one of the longest border closings of the most of the world, I think.
Boris is going to make a speech today, so find out what's happening.
Are you guys expecting more restrictions?
Yeah, unfortunately. So it
seems
like going.
Go and get a dive in today.
Yes. Hopefully.
Where are you
later this
guys
week.
calling us from?
We're based, I'm actually on the coast near Lowestoft, in a village called Pakefield, so literally on the Suffolk coast, and Ian's a bit further inland in Suffolk.
In Bungay.
Bungay. He's on a river and I'm on the coast. So
Good old Suffolk.
yeah, so we have got obviously inland dive sites that we can use through the winter, and rivers once they clear up a bit. We've had a lot of rain, so they're pretty not great. We jump
The old classic quarry dive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Gemma, you did your open water, didn't you, at a place called Gildy? And literally hand in front of your mask, you could hardly see. She was next to me at one stage, you couldn't even see her.
That's a good thing, though. You can't see all the dead bodies down there, then.
So it was not good. But then a few days later, we did a shore dive in Norfolk, just off the Norfolk coast on a wreck, and it was just amazing. So I went from that to a couple of meters, which was, yeah. So, but yeah, it's the joys of UK diving, so I'm sure. Yeah.
It keeps it entertaining, doesn't it? If you knew you were going to get 20 meters of viz every day, it'd be boring.
Oh, yeah.
And if the water was going to be warm,
Too pleasant.
Terrible. It'd be warm water, hey? It'd be terrible.
yeah.
We don't do this for fun.
Yeah, I qualified in July, and obviously I've been in a dry suit, so I don't know what diving in a wetsuit is. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
wetsuit diving. Luxury.
If people who, who are new to you, and they're now listening to us, for, where are they best to go to get more advice, more information on you, and keep up to date with what you guys are up to?
To keep up to date with what we're up to, we update our social media regularly. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, I think we're on Twitter as well. And we've got a YouTube channel, which is, it's got a mixture of things. It's got some of our fun dive videos, and it's also got some tuition stuff to give you a taste of what we do on our field course.
What's the name of it on YouTube?
I think it's just Cape RADD. Everything, all our social handles is at Cape RADD.
Okay, great.
And then we've got our website, which is www.caperad. So it's RADD, Research and Diver Development. It's 2Ds.com. That's what I would add then, just that Cape RADD is something for everyone, in a way that if you don't dive, or even if you've not even snorkeled before or freedive, then you can join a Citizen Science Day where we'll take you out. We stay very shallow, and you can still see lots and lots of life. And you'll learn a little bit about the marine life, and learn to snorkel, and learn how to behave out in the water to be able to observe better. And then our field course can be tailor-made for, like we say, it's mostly undergrad or postgrad students studying some kind of biological science, but we can tailor-make it to any kind of diver. Like a lot of dive professionals might want to join in and to get a flavour of the marine conservation side of things. So they might not want to be as marine scientists, but they might want something to talk about when they're given their courses, and give a little bit more depth to their dive experience. And they can come along, and we'll just turn the science down and push the exploratory diving and challenging diving up. So we really do like to tailor it to whoever we get. We usually get small groups, so it's quite easy to do that.
Question for you. Georgia, so a question for you. If I was a student and I'm like halfway through my marine biology degree, and I'm going to take a break for a little while, and I want, let's presume we're all back to normal and we can travel, and I look at your website and think, yeah, this would be really great, I'd like to come and do this. Do you help them find places to stay and stuff? If you're totally you've never been out to South Africa before, you don't know the setup at all. Do you help get people set up, where they're going to stay and what have you?
So if they're coming to join our course, then we basically do the full shebang. We'll pick them up from the airport. We'll have accommodation waiting for them with a welcome pack, which will explain everything about the local area, all the activities and restaurants, bars, cafes, all the things they can do. And then they'll have that scheduled course, which is, we usually run our course 9 till 4. And then outside of that, they can go and explore Cape Town. They can go hike up the mountains, go and check out the baboons, go whale watching. And but we make sure they're comfortable, they have their accommodation all lined up for them, drop them back off at the airport at the end of it. So it's
Can I just say, I think that's really good that you do that, because for a lot of people, you want to be able to just pay your money, turn up with your passport, and then come and do the course and get involved and do all those things without that worry of, when you don't know a country and you don't know that area, it's hard to know, is that a safe place to go? Is that all right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
we get a lot of young students who have never travelled before, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. So we make sure it's quite structured and they have everything lined up for themselves, and we help them book activities if they need our help and things for their free time.
That's really great.
As a parent, and you thinking that your son or daughter is going to be going to, another country, and it's good to know that they're kind of looked after from the time they get off the plane to the time they get back on the plane and back to the UK or wherever they come from. So
exactly,
I think it's really good you do that.
And a lot of people, as soon as you mention South Africa, everyone goes, "Oh no, we're not going there." Everyone's going to get, whatever. But this area we're in, based our headquarters in Sandsdown, but it's a very safe area. We do have Uber and things. It's not mud huts and cows running around the streets, as a lot of people in the UK think. There's no lions, so you're not going to get eaten by a lion. A common question. But yeah, it's very nicely set up for tourism, and people come here and they just fall in love with the place and they just keep coming back year after year.
Yeah, no, that's good. So yeah, well, I'm sure there'll be people that have obviously never heard of you that now will, and that will generate some interest, for the future. Yeah,
well, thanks for having us. It's been nice to chat.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks.
It's been lovely to meet you
guys.
Thanks again.
Good luck with the lockdown.
Yeah, okay. All right, have a good rest of the day, and stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
cheers.
Same. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Okay, bye.